Good evening, everybody. Welcome into To The Point. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday. We have a number of different things to dive into today. We're going to talk some NFL with some hirings across the league, different decisions. We got Super Bowl in about a week and a half from Las Vegas, so that's ongoing. Teams are getting ready to play that game. We get the extra week, so the build-up is upon us. Today, we're also going to talk about a little NBA. The Knicks are red hot. They look like a great team. You can't rule them out. Celtics played a fantastic game against the Pacers last night. That was fascinating basketball. Not good defense by either team. It was a great game. We're going to talk some NHL. What do teams do at the trade deadline? I want to look at three teams in particular: Calgary, Columbus, and Pittsburgh, all for different reasons. But I think these three teams are interesting. They have big decisions to make, and they're all different when it comes to the way I'm going to approach it. So buckle up for that. But I want to start today by talking about golf and the PGA Tour. PGA Tour has been ongoing for a couple weeks. You had events down in Hawaii, the American Express. You had an event last weekend where a man from France won for the first time ever on the PGA Tour. Special moment. You had an amateur winning already this season, and it's not even February. And you can look at that as a good thing. You can look at it as a negative thing. Because if you're not a passionate golf fan, you do not know who those guys are. They are not household names. They don't jump off the page. Now, there's still the Scotty Schefflers, who hasn't played good this year. Rory McIlroy, who's been playing in Dubai and overseas, so he hasn't really been to the United States yet. You have Colin Morikawa has been up and down. Justin Thomas had a good finish, but he's still trying to find his game after a horrible 2023. The PGA Tour lost Jon Rahm. The PGA Tour lost Dustin Johnson. They lost Brooks Koepka. They have lost a lot of brand, a lot of big names, a lot of personalities over the last year and change. And they lost another one yesterday. Tyrrell Hatton, who you probably think, if you're not a golf fan, I don't know who Tyrrell Hatton is. But I even think if you're a semi-casual golf fan, you will know who this guy is. I look at him as one of the best golfers in the world. He's consistently great at every major. He had 9 top 10 finishes last year on the PGA Tour, which was third on tour. Pretty impressive. And he's a personality. He loses it a lot. He's got a quick trigger, and before you know it, he could be throwing a club, swearing, doing something. He is a firecracker. And you can sell that. It's somebody you go, oh, I know that's Tyrrell. He might lose it today, and you might just tune in to see how he reacts to certain situations. So he joins Jon Rahm's team on the LIV Tour this year, so they're now paired up. And you might go, okay, it's a couple guys. Jon Rahm is obviously the bigger loss. I'm not making the argument that Tyrrell Hatton is a bigger loss than Jon Rahm. What I am saying is he's another name, he's another face, he's another brand that the PGA Tour does not possess. And while the negotiations between LIV or the Saudi investment fund and the PGA Tour are ongoing, we did get some news today. Well, a couple of pieces of news from the PGA Tour. Number one, Full Swing Season 2 will be out March 6th on Netflix. If you're not familiar, Full Swing was a documentary-style product that Netflix did with the PGA Tour last year. They had a piece on Brooks Koepka, Matt Fitzpatrick when he won the U.S. Open. They had Joel Damon, fantastic one from Joel. Justin Thomas winning the PGA Championship. It was a very well done documentary. I really enjoyed it. I think it was universally praised, and it's coming back for season 2. Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Joel Damon, the Ryder Cup captains, where they followed them around. It's going to be good. I'm going to watch it. I think a lot of people watch it. But that's number one. This the biggest piece of news today in the PGA Tour. And I'm going to read this because it's a doozy. And it can be difficult to understand if you don't read it correctly. So I'm going to try. This morning. The PGA Tour has reached a deal with Strategic Sports Group, a consortium of billionaire sports team owners, to infuse up to $3 billion into a new for-profit entity, PGA Tour Enterprises, that was officially launched Wednesday, the tour announced. Under the terms of the deal, Strategic Sports Group, which is being led by Fenway Sports Group, Liverpool, would make an initial investment of $1.5 billion with the possibility of another $1.5 billion coming later. The PGA Tour will control the for-profit company. The tour also said in a news release that the deal with the Saudi investment fund is close to being finished. So, off the top rope, the PGA Tour is now a for-profit business, which that's funny. What's not a for-profit business? Are we buying that all these people that run these charities are not doing for-profit businesses? I'm sure some of them are just good people, but not all of them. And I might sound like a conspiracy theorist there. Okay. Bell Let's Talk Day. Yes, they're only doing that for the publicity and helping people who struggle with their mental health, I'm sure. But again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. But the PGA Tour is now a for-profit business. How are they paying Jay Monahan? How are they paying all their people that work for the PGA Tour? Sponsors? It's ridiculous. They were a for-profit business before. They could label themselves that that they weren't not for profit, but that's a bunch of malarkey. The bigger thing here is that they are pumping so much money into this. Fenway Sports Group, $1.5 billion. They're going to be doing a deal with Saudi Arabia soon, which they need to get done, by the way, because we've talked about all the personalities, a lot of big names going to live members winning majors like Brooks Koepka did last season. And you look at the fields at these events, and they're a little bit thin. They're not loaded with talent. Pebble Beach is more loaded at the AT&T Pro-Am this weekend than it normally is because they need the brand names there. Nick Dunlap, who won a couple weeks ago, who's a 20-year-old amateur just turned pro, is being labeled as one of the go-to players to see this week, which I get it. Pump the new talent. But, I mean, nobody knew who this guy was a couple weeks ago. But you're getting money from a big company. They're going to be getting money from Saudi Arabia. The golf industry is going to be flowing with money. I think players are going to be making a large sum of money. And I think part of this deal at Fenway Sports Group is, of course, you want to promote it. You want to spend the money improving the product, get it out there, viewership, sponsorship deals, whatever you have to do to improve the product of golf, to make more people care, to get more people to watch. But here's another little wrinkle in this. The PGA Tour said nearly 200 of its members would have access to a first-of-its-kind program that would allow them to become equity holders in PGA Tour enterprises. The members would collectively have access to more than $1.5 billion in equity grants, which will vest over time. The size of grants will be determined by a tiered system based on career achievements, recent achievements, future participation, and services and PGA Tour membership status. You know what that tells me? All those players like Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, the best Hideki Matsuyama, the best players in the world, or the ones with the brand, who did not defect, who did not take the blood money, if you will, are going to be paid and are going to be made whole, at least in part, with this. Will they be getting the money that Brooks Koepka got reportedly? Maybe not. Will they be getting the money that Dustin Johnson took? Maybe not. But they need to be made whole, at least in part, and find some money to make it seem like they aren't completely idiotic, other than their standards and their morality, to stay on the PGA Tour. And your standards and morality may be good enough for some people. That's your decision. But I think there are many people inside the PGA Tour who are saying, we didn't take the money. Those live guys are going to come back to our tour, not have to face any penalties, still make the money that they're going to make from Saudi Arabia because they're now a partner, and we're still making bupkis. We don't have guaranteed contracts. We have to go out there and win golf tournaments to be guaranteed a check, to be guaranteed to put money on the table. That's the way golf was for a long time, and that's what made it so entertaining, so great, was you knew you got to make the cut to get paid. You win the tournament could change your family's life. That's second place incredible, but it was your play. It was the way you went out there and played that demonstrated what you were going to make, things of that nature, right? Liv changed the game, gave out guaranteed money, and changed the way that golf was done. Sure, the best players, Tiger, Phil, Freddie Couples, Bernard Langer, the best players of old got money through sponsorships from Callaway and TaylorMade and Hugo Boss, whatever you might, Nike. Sure, they got sponsorship money. And they weren't broke. I'm not making that opinion, but what I am saying is they could have been making more. They had to make their money based off the way they played. The NFL, the NHL, the NBA, baseball. If you sign a contract, it does not matter how good or how bad you are. If you have years on that contract, you are guaranteed to make that salary. Hell or high water, 50 goals or zero. 200 hits or you're batting 200. If you signed on the dotted line, you know your salary going into the season, and nobody, if you believe in God himself can't take away the check from you. You are guaranteed to make that money. You're seeing all the major professional sports. Golf's a big sport. Golf has grown in such a large way, in part due to the Fauci virus, but also because it is a relatively cheap sport to play. Yes, you can buy expensive Callaway golf clubs, and you could be a 28 handicap and wheel out there and pretend like you're a scratch golfer and have nice shit. But you could also go out there and play with your dad's old stuff that he used in the 80s, and it'll still work if you want to do it. Hockey, you need a lot of money. To play hockey now, and this isn't an oversimplification, you either have parents who are relatively wealthy and they have good positions, or your family lives a poor life. because the registration, the gear, it's thousands of dollars just to get your ass on the ice. And you don't know if your kid's going to like it. You don't know if they're going to give up after 5 seconds of being out there. It's a gamble. That's that sport. Basketball, not as expensive. Football, same, but you're still looking at it. They're getting paid regardless of their athletic ability. There will be players who say, let me play on a year-to-year basis so I can make more money based off my productivity. Patrick Mahomes, LeBron, over the years, Austin Matthews this season, you think he took a lot of money? Leafs fans, he'd ask for more if he could hit the market again this summer. But you signed on the dotted line. You're guaranteed it doesn't matter. Golf forever was, we don't care how much money you bring us. We don't care that you're Rory McIlroy and you're competing against Webb Simpson. You're going to make the same amount of money if you finish in the same place as Webb Simpson. There's no fee for showing up. We don't care that people like to watch you. That's it. And the PGA Tour failed to realize that the player said, enough of this. Now, I like the old model. I still love golf. I always will. But that's where this is going. The days of that are completely over. The PGA Tour getting a deal with Fenway Sports Group. The PGA Tour linking up with Saudi Arabia to funnel money into their business. Of course, it's for other factors. But part of it is to recoup these players of what they didn't get. The Rorys, the Justin Thomases, they're saying, we didn't get this money. And we stood by you, Jay Monahan. Make us whole. And quite honestly, it took Saudi Arabia, which you might not like, because there's a lot of ramifications there. They're not my cup of tea. But they're business people. The way they handled certain things in the past, reprehensible. But looking at what Saudi Arabia has done over the last 2 to 3 years, I don't think that you can label them as people that don't do good business, that are the right way to label this, that they're not business people of the highest order. They have made boxing and have started to make mixed martial arts into a bigger product. I talked about this before, but next month, Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion, will fight Alexander Usyk, the interim heavyweight champion, for all the belts. One of the biggest heavyweight fights in recent memory. That fight is happening in Saudi Arabia, and it'll be happening in the afternoon during Riyadh season, which is what they're doing with all these Riyadh seasons before Ramadan, late February, the PFL, the second biggest MMA organization on the planet, is hosting a Bellator versus PFL Champions event that is the biggest event in PFL and Bellator history. Huge fights. Again, Saudi Arabia, pay-per-view, the weekend after. Second weekend in March, Anthony Joshua, former heavyweight champion of the world, winner in his last 4 fights, including a knockout December 23rd in Saudi Arabia during the Day of Reckoning event, will fight Francis Ngannou, the former heavyweight champion of the UFC, Le Predateur. 2 huge, massive men. Boxing. Well, we box in Vegas, or we box in the UK. They're still going to. But Saudi Arabia are doing these deals. They're bringing in huge money. They're changing organizations. They pumped in money to the PFL. They pumped in money to LIV, and now soon the PGA Tour. They have changed the sports landscape, and I think before the decade is up, a Saudi Arabian investment fund or a figurehead will own an NBA team. I just think that's the sport they're going to target. I think the NBA is going to expand. They only have 30 teams. NFL, 32. Hockey, 32. Seems to be growing anytime soon. You think NBA is going to stay at 30? They can have other markets. They're going to Vegas. You can say LeBron's going to own the Vegas team. Okay. What if they want to go to Seattle? What if a Saudi Arabian national buys the Seattle Supersonics? And they expand to play at Climate Pledge Arena. That can happen. I think it's going to happen. And that's what's happening here. They have the money. The PGA Tour can get money from these other investors in North America. So it can still kind of seem like you're not taking money from Saudi Arabia, which they will be. But no, we're taking it from Fenway Sports Group. But it's fascinating to me what's happening. The way the sport, the fun in the last 3 years. It didn't take long. And ultimately, and this is the fascinating thing, Jay Monahan, the Brutus to the PGA Tour players Julius Caesar, betrayed them, didn't loop them in, made nobody aware, including Rory McIlroy. The A2 Brute moment of them all. Then he went into hiding, saying he was sick. Missed out on a major to end the season. After this deal was done, he ran and hid like a coward. But through all of it, he's negotiated this deal alongside the players. And this is also in their press release. Jay Monahan will serve as CEO of PGA Tour Enterprises, according to the release. Trust will need to be rebuilt. Fences will need to be mended. Will they? I don't know. Curious to see how it goes. But he stays on. He stays in his position, in his ivory tower. The players are still going to be employees. But seeing across sports, the employee title used to be written in lowercase letters. It's kind of an uppercase employee now. Because the pull, the leverage has changed. The pendulum is shifting. NBA, you don't want to play somewhere, they trade you. Simple as that. I don't want to be here anymore. I hate this team. I hate my coach. Whatever. You don't have to have a good excuse. You're gone. You're out of here. NFL, it's starting to be that way. I'm sick of this. I need a fresh start. Get me out of here. You're gone. Hockey, you might think, it hasn't happened in hockey yet. Pierre-Luc Dubois is in Los Angeles. Didn't happen. He didn't want to be in Winnipeg. He's no longer in Winnipeg. It'll continue to go that way. Not back to where it was. And this is just another example of it. Of the inmates are not fully running the asylum, but they have a key. And when they want to get out, they can. Golf as a whole is a business that needed to innovate, that needed to change a little bit. Because up to this point, they were staying in the Stone Age, and they were hoping for everything to stay the same. And it's not. All I can hope through this, I'm okay with the LIV PGA merger, because I want to see the best players play against each other. I want to see Jon Rahm play Rory McIlroy. I want to see Brooks Koepka in that mix, like we see at majors. But can we get that at events on the PGA Tour? My only concern and my only word of advice to the PGA, if LIV coming on means you have to adopt their rules, teams, shotgun starts, it's a bad idea. The product is dreadful. Simple as that. Team golf just isn't any good. Shotgun starts. 3-day events. It's okay if players have guaranteed salaries. And then what you make on top of the tournament is up to you and how you play. All for that. But you need to make the customer care. And if it's a team tournament down the stretch, I'm not going to care. And it will hurt my love for the game of golf. Because last weekend, I'm watching the Farmers. And yes, it's not brand name players playing against each other. You don't see the Scotty Schefflers. He's nowhere to be seen. You look around and go, okay, Nate Lashley making a push. Knapp, young player. Bo Hostler, I kind of know him. Steven Yeager. And Pavon ends up winning the tournament at minus 13 after an incredible save after a horrible tee shot in 18. Winning at Torrey Pines, a very tough golf course to win at. But the drama was there. This guy's looking to win his first PGA Tour event, be the first man from France to win on the PGA Tour, and he accomplished that goal. But there's no teams. It wasn't a shotgun start. It was down to the 18th hole. And when it was not cutting time, Pavon made the shot. This past season when Nick Taylor won the Canadian Open, it was about him winning the tournament, making that 72-foot putt. That drama, that moment in Canada, him having that, the reaction, the crowd. I don't think it's going to be there for team golf. The Waste Management, which is next weekend, is so fantastic because of the event, because of the stakes, because of 16. I understand making tweaks to the product, making changes to how the money works in the sport because you had to. But do not change the format. The format is fine. I love it. The Pebble Beach Pro-Am starts tomorrow. As I mentioned, a really good field. Ludvig Åberg from Sweden. Rory McIlroy's in the event. He's playing with Taylor Montgomery. Sam Burns, Tommy Fleetwood, Ricky Fowler, Adam Hadwin, Brian Harmon, major winner last year, Sung J M, Chris Kirk, who's already won this season, Justin Rose, the defending champion, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Nick Taylor, Sahith Theegala, Lucas Glover, multiple-time winner last year on tour, Mackenzie Hughes, Sung J M, Jordan Spieth, JT Poston, Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Corey Connors, Matt Fitzpatrick, Matt Kuchar, Wyndham Clark, Keegan Bradley, Xander Schauffele, The Visor, Keith Mitchell. The field is loaded. It's one of the best golf courses in the world. It's not a great sports weekend, but you get to watch golf at Pebble. And you get to see some celebrities. I'll be dialed in. I think it's going to be fantastic. But it was a big day for the PGA Tour and everything that surrounds it. So I want to go into a deep dive with you also. I appreciate that. If any other news comes out on LIV and PGA Tour finalizing that deal, we'll react to it here. It sounds like it's close. Sounds like it's very close, but nothing is done yet. So, till it's done, we'll wait and see. Let's move to the NFL. One of the top names when head coaches start to be fired on Black Monday, vacancies are opening up. One of the big names available was Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, who was interviewed by several teams last year, decided to not go to Carolina. He coaches the Lions this year. They're top 5 in every offensive category. Jared Goff, incredible turnaround. Amon-Ra St. Brown's an All-Pro. Sam Laporte is an All-Pro as a rookie. Jahmyr Gibbs, great rookie season with David Montgomery. I mean, they're cooking. And they also reached the NFC Championship game for the first time in over 30 years. So the leverage, the aura of Ben Johnson, you would think couldn't have been higher. But yesterday, as the Seattle Seahawks, I believe, might have been the Washington Commanders, were beginning to fly to Detroit to meet with Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, and Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, he released a statement saying, I'll be remaining in Detroit. I'll be not taking myself out of consideration for the Seattle or the Washington football team head coaching openings. He has 2 years remaining on his contract. He will remain as the offensive coordinator of Dan Campbell's staff going into next season. Number one, this is great news for Dan Campbell. He doesn't need to find a new OC. Ben Johnson knows what it's like to work with these guys. He's going to be able to retain the majority of that offense. They'll be able to run it back. So that's a win for Detroit, the Detroit fan base, and going into next season, hopefully trying to get back to where you were this year and also winning a division in back-to-back years, which they haven't done in 30 years. Here's the interesting thing. He's staying, doesn't want the Seattle job, says no to Washington. The more intriguing thing for me, if we go back in my notes here, of all the coaches that were available at the start of this thing, and I got that somewhere, so bear with me. We do a lot of stuff here, a lot of games. But if we think about it, there was the Falcons, the Chargers, the Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks, Washington football team, Tennessee, all available. New England, briefly. All had head coaching vacancies. And nobody hired Ben Johnson. You're thinking hot new offensive coordinator. That everybody gets that hire. Everybody, Matt LaFleur got that because he was that. Mike McDaniel got a job because of that. Why wouldn't they want Ben Johnson? One argument could be he's picky. Okay. He didn't want the Carolina job. I don't blame him. Carolina hired a coach and Dave Canales he had success this year with the Bucs, but he hasn't been around much in the NFL, and I felt like they knew they could get him. They must believe he is a good coach, but no big name coach is going to go to Carolina because of the owner, because of the quarterback situation, because of the talent situation. It's not a good job. Okay. Ben Johnson doesn't want to go there and ruin his only chance of being a head coach. Okay. Sure. Let's go on. Falcons. Falcons go with Raheem Morris, a defensive-minded coach. That's a bit of a pivot, but you're looking at this hiring cycle. Jim Harbaugh, defensive-minded coach, even though he played quarterback, defensive-minded coach, coached the defense. Raheem Morris, number 2. Mike McDonald, who got hired today by the Seattle Seahawks, all defensive guys becoming head coaches, which is a change. So why wouldn't these teams who struggle on offense want to hire Ben Johnson? Here's my theory. Reportedly going into this, Ben Johnson was seeking $15 million a year. He had never been a head coach, and this is reported by guys like Peter Schrager that said he was looking in that area. $15 million. Just for reference, this is based off sportskita.com. As of 2023, the average NFL head coach earns approximately $6.6 million annually. In contrast, the average yearly salary of the other assistant coaches on an NFL team is $5.5 million. So that's all combined. Pay scales for the top 10 NFL head coaches range from $8 million to $12 million annually. So the top 10 coach, he's never coached it down as a head coach. So we don't know if he's any good. We know he can coach offense, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach. That does not translate often. Sometimes you're just a coordinator. He's asking for $15 million. That's Bill Belichick territory. That's Sean Payton territory. Those guys have won Super Bowls. This guy hasn't done a damn thing. That ask is crazy. The fact that he or his agent believed that he could make this is absurd. He pulled out of these last 2 jobs. He doesn't want the Seattle gig. He doesn't want the Washington gig. Okay, I can disagree. I think the Washington job's not that bad. I think there's some intrigue to it. You get a quarterback that you like from college and you move on. Seattle, I wouldn't want that job, quite frankly. But it's a job. But to me, Ben Johnson is not becoming the offensive coordinator once again for Detroit because of his own merit, like it was labeled yesterday. He's the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions because teams were unwilling to pay him $15 million. Simple as that. They were not going to pay a guy, an unproven commodity, $15 million to do a job that they didn't know if he could do. Makes no sense. You make gambles in life, certainly. You make decisions, but to me, that's just stupidity. Paying guy $15 million. I mean, based off this, your first salary, you could be making $5-6 million. Bill Belichick reportedly made 20. Sean Payton makes 18. Pete Carroll did make 15. Those guys all won Super Bowls. All have done it. Sean McVay, 15, Super Bowl champion. Mike Tomlin, 12.5, Super Bowl champion. Andy Reid, 12, multiple time Super Bowl champion. John Harbaugh, 12, Super Bowl champion. Kyle Shanahan, into his second Super Bowl. Josh McDaniels, bad decision, fired. And then Mike Vrabel, 9.5, fired. Matt LaFleur makes $5 million. Multiple time in the NFC Championship game. Pretty damn good coach. Mike McCarthy makes $4 million with the Cowboys. Stefanski, 3.5 at the Browns. Zach Taylor, 4.5 with the Bengals. Robert Saleh, $5 million with the Jets. So let's say you're making $5 million. That's a damn good check. He wanted $10 million more. I think this is just a miscalculation on his. He might look at it, come back, have a great season again. Detroit has a lot of success. See the openings and find a job he really likes. Like, for instance, Chicago Bears might draft Caleb Williams. They don't have a successful season, and they decide to fire Matt Eberflus. Ben Johnson could leave the Lions and go coach the Bears and have one of the best young quarterbacks in the sport and try to build a winner. Is that better than Atlanta? It could be. Is that better than the Chargers? Could be. Younger roster, more flexibility. But I think Ben Johnson, if he was realistic, he'd be a head coach right now. But he shot too far and he screwed it up for himself. He just overplayed his hand, unfortunately, and he's got to go back to Detroit. And it's not the worst situation in the world. You can have another good season, but it's another risk where maybe you don't have as good a year, your numbers don't look as great, and your teams don't want you that much. It can happen. So Ben Johnson staying with the Lions. It was a headline for me because it was kind of labeled, oh, this is why this is happening. No. Not to me anyway. It's not happening because you wanted too much money. Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator with the Texans, he's staying put as well. He had interest from teams, interviewed for multiple jobs, but he's agreed to a new contract with Houston, according to Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback. 36-year-old will receive a significant raise as part of the deal. So he gets to work another season with C.J. Stroud. The quarterback's coach, Gerard Johnson, another key member of the Houston staff, is also staying put. So they're bringing back a similar crew for next season, trying to replicate what C.J. Stroud did in his rookie season. Seattle did make a coaching hire. They hired Mike McDonald today, who was the defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. Number one defense in the sport. They held the Kansas City Chiefs to 0 points allowed in the second half on Sunday. Former coach with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Then joins John Harbaugh's staff in the NFL. And now he's a head coach himself. And Seattle gave him a 6-year contract. So clearly they wanted somebody younger. He becomes the youngest head coach in the NFL at 36 years old. They want him to build the Legion of Boom 2.0 on defense for this team, which struggled in every category last year. He does have some nice talent. Devon Witherspoon is a stud. Tariq Woolen, the corner, is a very good player. So Seattle has pieces. On offense, you still keep DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant, Kenneth Walker Jr. III. I don't think it's a terrible job. They have decisions to make at quarterback. Trade up and draft one, find another one. Do they keep Geno Smith moving forward? They're kind of in this weird spot of, are we rebuilding? Are we retooling on the fly? Do we stay the course, try to become a playoff team again, just missing out this year by one loss? He's got to look around and go, San Francisco's pretty good. And they're consistently good because they always get the NFC Championship game, it seems. And now this year they get to the Super Bowl. The Rams made the playoffs this year when nobody expected them to. And the Cardinals have been a disaster. But they'll get another high draft pick and see what they do with it. And if Kyler Murray can be healthy for 17 games, perhaps they're better than they were this year. So it was a tricky division. I think it remains a tricky division. Will he be a good hire? I don't know. He was a really good defensive coordinator wherever he coached. He got more of that defense this year than I think any other coordinator in the league would have. And I understand completely why he got the job. Because the weakness of their team is defense. They needed help. So it's interesting. It's interesting here because now the only job remaining, the Washington Commanders, aka the Washington football team, new owner Josh Harris taking his time, working alongside the men he's brought in to help him. And as I said, Ben Johnson's out of the race. Bobby Slowick out of the race. I don't know who Washington's going to hire. I feel like they're going to hire an offensive-minded head coach, but I'm not so sure anymore. It doesn't sound like Bill Belichick is in the mix for the Washington job. It does not sound like Pete Carroll. Brian Johnson's been interviewed. I wouldn't hire him. There's Lou Anarumo, who's the defense coordinator of the Bengals. Eric Bieniemy, he's in-house. Who's the offensive coordinator. He's interviewed for the job. Dan Quinn, potentially. If he doesn't get that job, he's back in Dallas with McCarthy for another year. But yeah, Bobby Slowick out of the race. Brian Johnson, else he's getting. Todd Monken with the Ravens. I don't know. He's only been an offensive coordinator in the league for 1 year. I wouldn't hire him. Brian Callahan, he's been hired by the Bengals. Shane Waldron's the new offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. Whoever it's going to be, I think it'll be kind of a... Aaron Glenn could be hired, the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator. But if you're going to hire a defensive coach, you're going to need a good OC. Do you want to keep Bieniemy, the new head coach? Will he stay if he's not given the head coaching position, Eric Bieniemy? Because they have the second pick in the draft, and they are taking a quarterback. And it's likely going to be Drake May, or it's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. And you need somebody to work with him in his rookie season and help him out, help him improve as a pro quarterback. But there's really no stir as of yet who it's going to be. Adam Schefter all quiet in the Western Front, but that's the only vacancy left. February 1st tomorrow, the Washington job still needs to be filled. We see guys taking coordinator positions like Ken Dorsey became the Cleveland Browns OC and Kellen Moore became the OC of the Philadelphia Eagles. So teams are doing their job. They're finding their pieces. Ben Johnson staying as the offensive coordinator with the Lions. So there's only so many guys left. As of now, I think they're going to give the job to Eric Bieniemy. I think he's going to keep the job. It'll remain in-house. He has never been given an opportunity to be a head coach. All that time in Kansas City, winning games. If he doesn't get it, wouldn't shock me to see him back in Kansas City next year. Because if I'm him, I'm not sticking around in Washington to be offensive coordinator for another head coach. I just did it with Ron Rivera. I don't want to do it again. And while going back to Kansas City probably won't help his NFL head coaching prospects, I think they're kind of done to begin with if you don't get this job. Kind of signals to me you are a coordinator for the rest of your career and you just kind of have to accept it. But Washington, will keep our eyes open for that job. What happens? There's also the talk, what if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl in a week and a half? Does Andy Reid retire if they win the game? He would have won back-to-back Super Bowls, which is damn hard to do. He'll be 66 March 19th. So he's not a spring chicken. But I still think he loves coaching. I just think where there's smoke, there's fire. Where multiple outlets are talking. Adam Schefter had a piece last week in ESPN.com that Bill Belichick could replace Andy Reid as the Chiefs head coach next season after Reid retires. I mean, when Schefter's writing about it, I think it's a possibility. It must have at least been discussed or thought about by Andy Reid. You got to go win the game and all that, but if you can win back-to-back Super Bowls, there's not a. I mean, I think Travis Kelce will think about walking away. Because is there a better way to end your career than winning back-to-back Super Bowls? And you had a great playoff run to get there. A mediocre regular season, but you were awesome in the playoffs. Andy Reid coaching his ass off. Spagnuolo could leave with him. How old's Steve? Steve Spagnuolo is 64 years old. So a couple years younger than Andy. He's had a hell of a career. He's been there the entirety of Andy Reid's stay. He was a defensive coordinator when they beat Brady with the New York Giants. When he gave up 14 points. And if they win in a couple weeks, he'll break a 5-way tie and make him the first 4-time Super Bowl winning coordinator on either side of the ball. 2 in Kansas City, 1 in New York. That'd be something else. But they love coaching. They don't want to give it up. Pete Carroll did not want to sit down and not coach this season. That was just the situation that he was dealt. Would Andy Reid walk away? And who would Kansas City give the job to if he did? Belichick, eager to win? Old school like Andy Reid? Would he fit with Mahomes and co? Probably. Makes some sense. Also, Arthur Smith, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He is now the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a great offensive coordinator with Tennessee. That's what led him to being hired by Atlanta. Helped lead the Tennessee Titans to a number 1 seed. They beat the Patriots in Foxborough in a playoff game, getting to an AFC championship, just losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's his forte. I think he's a coordinator. I don't think he's a head coach. But the Steelers needed some stability to offense coordinator. They needed some creativity, something to move it forward. Arthur Smith is now in Pittsburgh. So that's kind of the NFL update. When we know more about the Washington job, we will be all over it. And quick news before we get to hockey. First of all, here's news. Major League Baseball pitchers and catchers report in less than 2 weeks now. Yep. Less than 2 weeks they report. I mean, it's crazy enough. It's February tomorrow, but pitchers and catchers in a short while here will be reporting. And a short while after that, position players will report to training camp. And one of those people will be Justin Turner, as the 39-year-old signed a 1-year, $13 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays on Tuesday. Turner played with the Boston Red Sox last season. I thought he had a pretty productive season. Seems to find a role no matter his age. He's not a third baseman anymore, so signing him thinking he's going to be an everyday third baseman, not going to happen. He's a first baseman / DH, but he serves a purpose. He can help Vladdy on days off. He's a good DH. He's won a World Series before. He's a positive element in the locker room. I don't think it's a stupid hire. I think it's a good addition to the team. They say it's a great addition if you know what he is and if they're aware of what he is as a player and what they can expect. So hopefully they know that he's not a third baseman anymore, because he isn't. Here's the thing. The Blue Jays have a good team, like they did last year. Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is going to be on the cover of MLB The Show 24. Whoop-de-woo. Bo Bichette, great player. Pitching staff, top-notch. Alek Manoah, I've seen pictures. He looks like he's in good shape. Like he's been working out, lifting weights. Good. They will be in a position to win the American League East again, like they have been in every season, yet they never do, but they will be in position to do it because they're still better than the New York Yankees. If you ask me, even with the additions of Juan Soto and other players that they brought in. The Red Sox, spare me. Orioles are a good team, and the Tampa Bay Rays will be competitive, but they didn't really add anybody in the offseason. You lose Wander Franco because he might be behind a jail cell for the rest of his life. So he's not going to be playing shortstop for the Tampa Bay Rays anytime soon. But who's going to play third base? Who's your everyday third baseman? Matt Chapman is still available. Is he a perfect player? No. Does he probably want too much money? Likely. But he's the best third baseman available. You know him, and you kind of need him, to be fair. To me, it's just, when you look at this list, Bellinger's still available. He was linked to the Blue Jays all winter long. Chapman. Jorge Soler, still available. Good player. You have a guy like JD Martinez, who is a pretty damn good player. How about Jordan Montgomery, pitcher? They don't really need him, but see, these are some of the guys still available. Clayton Kershaw still available. Blake Snell still available. Josh Hader got picked up. Matt Chapman. Rhys Hoskins. I think Jorge Soler makes a lot of sense with the Blue Jays in the outfield, but that's just a thought. Turner just got picked up. Brandon Belt, who was on the Blue Jays last year, still available. So there's still a lot of big names available in MLB free agency. Somebody's going to spend the money, or players just going to say, you know what? Okay, I'll sign. Because I want to be in spring training. I want to go somewhere. But I think Justin Turner's a good ad, but they need somebody at third base. Because they don't have one right now. Vladdy's not a third baseman. Justin Turner's not a third baseman. Period. End of story. Expecting those guys to play third base, you're stupid. And Matt Chapman, you might have to overpay him, which you don't want to do because he hit 240 last year, 17 homers, 54 RBIs. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 in April. You don't want to do it. Of course, you don't want to do it. But do you got a choice? Is there something better? Rather than, your current situation. Which you're looking at Santiago Espinal or Kevin Biggio playing a whole lot of games at third base unless somebody in AAA can really impress you over spring training and they make the team. But again, how good are they? I don't want to sign Matt Chapman 8 years at 31 years old and having a really bad season during a contract year and being awful in the postseason. He's great defensively, but he's no Nolan Arenado. I mean, come on, spare me that. Cardinals are unlikely to part with Arenado because they signed some veteran in the offseason. It sounds like they're kind of desperate to compete and win the NL Central, which I don't understand. Tank. Trade off some pieces. You don't have a good enough team. Your pitching isn't good enough. You were great for so long. You had Hall of Famers on your team. Adam Wainwright's gone. Yadier Molina is gone. Accept the fact and move on, but they're not going to. But baseball, with it coming around the corner, still a lot of good players available. Or at least, a lot of good players. No great ones. Blake Snell can be, but he's not going to give you a whole lot of innings, so that kind of worries you. Cody Bellinger, I don't trust him. I wouldn't sign him with a 10-foot pole. He could easily bat 210 next season. Wouldn't surprise me. Clayton Kershaw is a fringe starter at this point. 5-6 in the rotation. Maybe the Texas Rangers take him because they're going to have some injuries, miss some guys for periods of the season. He can come in and pitch. Move to the bullpen as you get later into the season so he has a longer lead-in time to prepare himself to be a bullpen arm. Jordan Montgomery. I like Jordan Montgomery. He was the best pitcher in the postseason this past year. That doesn't always translate to being an awesome get. He's 31. He's the same age as Matt Chapman. Be 32 in December. Reading here, it sounds like potentially the Cardinals could bring him back. Reunion, used to pitch with the team. But they did get Sonny Gray from the Twins. They signed another couple of veteran arms, so does it make a whole lot of sense to bring him in? Again, I don't think their team's that good. I wouldn't do it. Texas, I consider it. Clearly, they don't care about spending money. They spent a ton of money last year and they won a World Series. They got their end result. San Francisco Giants, Jordan Montgomery would make sense for me because they want to try to get better, want to try to get in the mix. Although you might look at the Dodgers just right now, their roster before the season even starts and go, we're screwed. Why the hell we spend any more money? Because the Dodgers are going to be better than us. I might think that next year when Ohtani's pitching. I wouldn't think that right now, but they might. Montgomery back to the Yankees. Potentially didn't pitch all that great in the Bronx, to be fair. But it's intriguing. Still a lot of big names available. We'll be into February tomorrow, and a lot of decisions still have to be made. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open for that. Let's move to the NHL. Tonight's our last night of games before the All-Star break. Detroit and Ottawa tonight, Nashville and Los Angeles, and San Jose and I don't even know. San Jose and Anaheim. Woof. Last night I watched the Celtics and the Pacers. I watched every dribble of that game. And watch a second of hockey Monday or Tuesday. I might watch some tonight. But I'm enjoying other sports. All-Star break looming. I don't care about the All-Star break. These last couple of days before the All-Star break, they're bad games. Teams aren't going to be in the playoffs. So I lose interest a little bit in those games. I do want to see how LA plays, however, because Todd McClellan is on the hot seat. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. But here's where I'm at in the season. March 8th is the trade deadline. It's a Friday, which is a great idea. It should have been on a Friday for many years now. Why it never was on a Friday is beyond me. At least I think it's on a Friday. I'm going to guarantee it to tell you it's on a Friday, so I'm right. And it's on a Friday. Yes, correct. No one. Audience 0. March 8th, trade deadline, the National Hockey League. What we want to talk about tonight, I want to talk about 3 teams. It's easy to talk about the Leafs. You could say the Canucks. Canucks go all in. Okay. I don't think they should, but that's probably the rhetoric. Oilers, backup goalie. We can talk about these teams, the Canadian teams, and the heavy hitters of the league and what they want to do. We'll get as we get close to the deadline, we will. I want to talk about 3 teams in particular as we get closer to the trade deadline. One is Canadian. We'll save them for last, Calgary. Let's start with Columbus. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who are really, they want to become the worst organization in the NHL. For a while there, it was Chicago because of the Kyle Beach incident and then the Corey Perry incident. And that all gets kind of gelled together. Do I think Chicago is the worst organization in the NHL? No, I think they're one of the best historically over time. But you get lumped into that. The media doesn't like you. You're all bad people that work there. Blah, 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 blah. People never make a mistake in their goddamn life, but that's the way they do it. But Columbus, my friends, Columbus wants to take the mantle. This season, this is what's happened to Columbus. Fired Mike Babcock before the season started because of Photogate with Boone Jenner and different players, and they're uncomfortable with him. Mike Babcock fired before the season started. Okay. You're looking around going, do we hire a coach? Do we bring in somebody with experience? Somebody that we like? No, let's hire Pascal Vincent, who never a head coach before, but he's on our staff. He can come in and coach. He comes in. Night 1 of the NHL season, he healthy scratches Kent Johnson, one of the top prospects in the entire organization. He pulls a Mike Babcock move night 1. Interesting. Kent Johnson then was a healthy scratch in 5 of the first 12 games. That didn't help. David Jiricek, top defensive prospect. This season, playing some games, started the year in the American League. Not happy about that. Playing great in the American League like you did last year. Called up in mid-November. Plays 4 games. Was told to get a place in Columbus. And this is from Aaron Portzline, I know this, of The Athletic. Because he wrote an article about this, and I read it, and it was very well done. I think Aaron Porcelain is one of the best reporters in the NHL, period. He only covers Columbus, but he's very good at what he does. Credit to him. They told David Jiricek, one of my favorite prospects in the game right now, get a place in Columbus. You're not going anywhere. 4 days later, he was sent back to the American League for over a month. If that's not mixed messaging, I don't know what is. He then gets called up a few more times, plays a game. They call him up to go out west on a trip, thinking he's going to play. Sits in the press box for one game, and then gets sent back to Cleveland. Called back up early January. He gets sent back last week, and then he releases a statement saying, I'm not happy with my situation. I know I'm one of the top 6 defensemen on this team. They don't agree. It's stupid. He's not taking it anymore. Player empowerment. That's another thing. How about Elvis Merzlikins? They don't inform him that they're going to be trying a younger goalie. They don't tell him, okay, we're just going to stop playing you, basically. We're going to put you on ice. We're not going to put you in anymore. Then he has to come out and say, I'm going to formally request a trade, do it publicly, tell a media member so it blows up. And he could have did it internally by just talking to the goaltender, way less ugly, with him making statements about the team, the way it's run. Complete disaster. And then this week, you can't blame this on the organization, I guess, but Patrick Laine enters the NHL Players Assistance Program for mental health reasons. Oh, and their top prospect, Adam Fantilli, got cut by a skate blade, and he's out for 8 weeks. 8 weeks is 2 months last time I checked. It's February 1st tomorrow, so that would make 2 months April 1st if everything goes well. Adam Fantilli might play a few games down the stretch, but he might not play another NHL game this year. So Johnson's pissed. Jiricek's unhappy. Fantilli's not playing. Great in Columbus. I just want to go through that. Here's my pitch for Columbus before the trade deadline. Columbus should fire Jarmo Kekalainen. He's been there a long time. Has he made some good moves? Sure. Has he made decisions on players like Artemi Panarin? Yeah. Trading for Matt Duchene? Yeah. Sergei Bobrovsky? Yeah. Getting no return for these players. Going all in one season where the team was not close to winning, but you do it anyway. They did win a round against Tampa Bay Lightning way back when, sweeping them, which was the only time that the franchise has won a round in the history of it. So 10 years, I don't think he's accomplished a whole lot. He hasn't built winners. They beat the Leafs in that, fake bubble Fauci playoff series, but everybody beats the Leafs in the playoffs, so that's not impressive. No offense, Leafs fans, but you know it. He's been there 10 years. He's the 3rd longest tenured GM in the NHL. And he's won one playoff round in that time frame. Part of the messaging is him. Because coaches don't send players down in the American League, the GM does. It's not the coach. So that's where we are. I don't think he should be the GM. If he's not going to be the GM in the future, you need to find somebody who's going to be. I don't think you'd want that. You don't want Jarmo making decisions for the future of the organization if he's not going to be around much longer. Columbus is a cheap-ass team. They don't like to spend money. I get it, and they probably won't want to do this. But your team's going nowhere. The young players hate you. You're already labeled as a place nobody wants to play. Don't push that agenda further. Try to repair the relationships with your good young talent now before they are completely broken. Yarmo did a job for a long time. John Davidson sounds like he's not long for the NHL world anymore. His last job should be to hire a new GM. Or at least help somebody find somebody that can bring stability to this organization and be a better communicator than Jarmo Kekalainen is. Because everything has gone wrong with this team. Everything's gone wrong with this team. Who that GM is going to be, I don't know. It'd be nice to have somebody with experience. I think Dave Nonis, who's working in Calgary, would be a good hire. I think he deserves another chance, quite frankly. I think he's good at what he does. He's waited around. He's worked under people for the last number of years, getting experience. Can you lure somebody to Columbus to give them a president's job if John Davidson is gone? Maybe. Does Rick Nash want to take the job? I don't think that's his go-to. I think he could be a president, but you hire a GM with a little more experience that knows the job a little bit more. But go on a search and find the right guy. To me, it's not Jarmo Kekalainen anymore. He's the biggest part of this problem. You could argue it's his fault that Mike Babcock didn't work out because he's the one that said we're going to go with him. So, Columbus. Roslovic's their only pending UFA. So I don't think they're going to be a busy deadline team unless they decide to trade Boone Jenner. Or if they can get somebody to take Provorov and that salary, maybe you trade those guys. Otherwise, I think they'll be quiet. Merzlikins, maybe he goes, but I don't think there's a huge market for him. So that might be a bad team to go, they're going to be busy. They're not going to be. They have a whole lot of young talent that are good. Voronkov's a good player. Chinnikov's a good player. Ken Johnson's a good player. They got good pieces on the team, but they need more veterans. They need stability in the organization. They have none right now. Fire Jarmo Kekalainen. Pittsburgh. Kyle Dubas, first-year GM. They have the 30th ranked power play in the NHL out of 32 teams with Crosby, Malkin, Carlson, Letang, Gensel on the team. Can't happen. Completely unacceptable. The Carlson trade hasn't been a success. Him and Letang don't mesh. Just like Carlson and Burns did not mesh. It was a gamble for Pittsburgh. They are the AARP Penguins. They're old. Sidney Crosby's having a phenomenal season, playing incredible. Father time. Him and LeBron James both doing it at an advanced age. The problem with LeBron James and Sidney Crosby, they both play on bad teams. They both play on teams that aren't very good and aren't going to win championships, so it kind of hurts them. Pittsburgh, here's my thing. Jake Gensel is a pending unrestricted free agent. I love Jake Gensel. Sidney Crosby obviously makes him better, but he's a good player otherwise. He would play well without Sidney Crosby on his line. Pittsburgh's not going anywhere. If they squeak into the playoffs, which, okay, great. You lose in the first round, you go home, you pack your bags, and you golf for 5 months. And you still have an old-ass team that you shouldn't have signed all those guys to. And what, you go run it back next year, and you hope Tristan Jarry's better, and that's all you're hoping for. I'm trading Jake Gensel. They won't, but they should. If Sean Monahan can bring in a first-round pick, which is what Pierre LeBrun said last night on Insider Trading, that there's a potential that Sean Monahan can bring in a first-rounder, Jake Gensel should bring in fucking 3. If that's the measurement, Jake Gensel's top of his game. Great player. Really good winger. Finding the fit for him is tricky, but you'll make it work. He's 29 years old, really good player. And I think teams around the league would love to have him. I don't see a fit in Toronto. I don't see a fit in Edmonton. I don't see a fit in Vancouver. Money reasons and others. Colorado could somehow land him with the money from Landeskog. Ooh, they would be formidable. What if Jack Eichel doesn't play again this year until the playoffs because of an injury? Could Vegas pull that off? Never say never. They find a way. Jake Gensel to Vegas. Jake Gensel to Winnipeg. They could use him. They could use another scorer on the wing. Dallas. I don't think it's a Canadian team fit, but there are teams out there that say they can win a Stanley Cup that could use the services of Jake Gensel. Pittsburgh should trade him. Sidney Crosby should ask for a trade or look for a new situation in the offseason because he's going nowhere in Pittsburgh. It's a sinking ship. Kyle Dubas should want to rebuild to start anew there. It's a failed team. If they make the playoffs, it's because they squeak in. But Pittsburgh they're not a great team. They don't get good enough goaltending. They have a horrible power play. Their defense pairings don't work with one another. Give it up. Trade Jake Gensel. And we end with Calgary. Prior to the deadline, Calgary had lost 4 or 5 games, winning. The only game they won in there was beating Chicago 1-0 on Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada against Chicago. The West is wild. The Wild Wild West, you might say. You got St. Louis, who's currently in a playoff spot, but they played 49 games. They have 54 points. Nashville also has 54 points. The Kings have 54 points. The Kraken have 52. Coyotes have 49. Yeah, the Flames have 49. So they're still in the mix. And the Flames could make the playoffs because these other teams are so inconsistent and not very good, just like Calgary. We talked about this before, but a team in the Western Conference is going to make the playoffs, and they're not a great team, period. Whether it's the Blues or whether it's the Preds or Kraken, Coyotes, Flames, maybe the Wild, they're not a great team, whoever it is that gets in. And the Flames, Jacob Markstrom could win a bunch of games down the stretch for them. He's capable of that. He wills them into the playoffs, but they're just not a great team around him. They're okay, but they're not great. They're not elite. Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev, potentially Jacob Markstrom, who's got 2 years left after this and a full no move. You have bargaining chips. You have really intriguing players to deal and be the biggest mover and shaker at the trade deadline if you are Craig Conroy. You would control the deadline. You don't have to make every trade in the last day. Start making them next week if teams are interested. I think Calgary needs to be the biggest player and let everybody know we are open for business. Come one, come all, make us your best offer, and let's see what we can do. Elias Lindholm, hey Boston, you want him? Come get him. Noah Hannafin, who couldn't use him? Leafs, you want a defenseman? You need about 3. You want to take Noah Hannafin on your roster? How about Jacob Markstrom? Hey Los Angeles Kings, probably not a deal Calgary wants to do with 2 years left on the deal, and they're in your division. But if you're rebuilding, you're kind of waving the white flag. When you think about it, Dylan Dubé could be in prison with what he's being accused of. He's not going to be playing. Rick Westhead of TSN said that trial could be in 2026. It's 2024. Yes, time goes by fast, but not that fast. That's a whole other season. He might not be playing hockey. Dylan Dubé gone. Lindholm, Hannafin, Tanev. What are you going to be next year with Markstrom? Why not bring in new talent? Jakob Pelche, back healthy. You reset your team. You bring in some new draft picks and you build for the future. I think LA would love Markstrom. Teams would come out of the woodwork. If it's for a great goaltender, they'll make the deal. They'll find a way to make it work, I believe anyway. Because while goaltenders might go, they're not that valued anymore. Carolina, if they could, should trade for Jacob Markstrom. Because Carolina can catch the Rangers. They're 2 points back. They're better than the Rangers. The Devils, who are currently 6 points out of a playoff spot, but have a couple games in hand, should look at trading for Jacob Markstrom. If you're Calgary, you get first-round picks, and you got teams out east. What if they traded for Jacob Markstrom, the Devils, and the Devils missed the playoffs? Flames keep that pick. This trade deadline period, they get a first for Lindholm, which they would. They could get a first for Markstrom, guaranteed plus, which they would. They might get a first for Tanev because teams might be so. If it's a first for Monahan, it's a first for Tanev. If Montreal can get that, that is the precedent, and it's going to be sky high. But Calgary needs to be not hoping to get in. Screw that plan. Let's be the aggressors. Let's control the deadline. Let's be in control of the board. Risk management. Let's control all the territories and win this board game. We're not going to win right now, but Craig Conroy is in year one of being the general manager. He's not going anymore. He has carte blanche to do whatever he wants. Build a new roster. Build your team, not Brad Treliving's. That should be the approach for Calgary moving forward. Control the deadline. There's other teams that we'll talk about going into this. Flyers are interesting. We'll talk about the bigger hitters and the teams that won't want to sell. I want to talk about 3 sellers today, and these ones in particular to me have to be, and for all different reasons, as we talked about. But that's what's going on. There's also the NHL lawsuit where Formenton, Dubé, McLeod, Carter Hart all turned themselves in. We got to wait news on that, but that came out yesterday. So that's unfortunate news, but it is what it is. Unfortunate situations. Tonight, 3 NHL games. Red Wings, Senators, Kings, Preds, Sharks, Ducks in the NBA. Sacramento and Miami, fun game. Dallas in Minnesota. Denver at OKC, 2 of the best teams in the NBA. Suns at the Nets, Bucks at the Trailblazers. So we're taking in some of that action tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. We'll be back Friday, no tomorrow, but we'll be back Friday before the weekend. Have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy your Thursday. We'll talk to you soon here on To The Point.